G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Let's go. My stepdad turned my family against me. My dad passed away when I was 15. Him and my mum weren't all that close by that time, so while it hit me hard, she wasn't as fazed as you'd expect. I joined the military when I was 17, and in my first year out of the house, my mum remarried. I never really vibed with him, just had different personalities and such. He would often make snide remarks and tell me to man up about any inconvenience I'd be upset about. This led to spats between us, and I was often just as at fault as he was for these disagreements, though it never got too serious. I got medically discharged after a little under 5 years, and my mum and him said they'd be happy to have me back in the house. I told them that it would be brief, just until I got back on my feet and got a job, and even offered to pay rent, to which they declined. About 3 days into being back home, my stepdad, when alone with me, asked what he thought a fair rent would be. I was confused, but it was his house, so we came to an agreement, and I kept it from my mum, assuming he did not want her to know, as he never mentioned it around her. I never asked for anything from them, not out of spite. I just wanted to do things myself. He had a son from a previous marriage. Him and I didn't share any common interests or anything, but I never had any issues with him. I'd say we got along. The only thing is, he was given a lot from them. Paid for his schooling, paid for his car, paid for his living arrangements, through college, and even after. I was a little less than a year older than him, so he started college right after they married. Like I said, I didn't want or need the help, but it felt lame that he would get all that assistance, and I was immediately asked for rent. But I digress. I moved out after 3 months, and not long after, I met a girl who I was crazy about, and we started dating. It was my first relationship, and I was over the moon the entire time, like in that early relationship haze, but it was just constant. I was very nervous to bring her home. My mum and I were very close, and I always worried she would be very judgmental of a girl I'd bring home. My worries ended up being unwarranted. They got along extremely well. My girlfriend does not have a family, long story, so my mum and stepdad became like that for her. Her and my mum hit it off extremely well, to the point that they were hanging out just the two of them at times, and it made me extremely happy. My stepdad even really liked her too, and I felt that it brought us closer, which isn't something that I felt I wanted until we were. His dad abandoned his family growing up, and he put himself through school and got a nice high-paying job all by himself, which I had immense respect in him for. About a year in, I knew this was the girl that I was going to marry. I told my mum and stepdad, and they both seemed extremely happy. She was practically part of the family already. My mum gave me her engagement ring my dad gave her, which she kept. The job I had didn't pay so great, so I figured even if it wasn't the ring that she'd always have, it'd be a great placeholder. When I proposed, my girlfriend told me that it wasn't a placeholder, and she absolutely loved it. I was legitimately never happier in my life. We started wedding planning, and my mum and stepdad said that they'd help take care of the finances. It was the first time they had offered to help me financially, and it really meant a lot. Fast forward to about 3 months later, I get a call from my stepdad who said that I needed to come over. It felt a bit ominous, but I went over there after work. When I got there, I was greeted by my mum, stepdad, stepbrother, and fiancé. I saw her on the couch and could tell she had been crying. I immediately thought someone had died and went to go sit next to her when my stepdad stopped me. He started hitting me with accusations of me cheating on her for our entire relationship. I was puzzled and told everyone there that I don't even text any woman that I'm not related to besides her. Apparently, some girl had gotten my fiancé's number and told her that we were sleeping together for over a year now, but she didn't know that I was in a committed relationship. She sent her screenshots of alleged conversations and knew stuff about me that a random person wouldn't know. I, like a fool, couldn't see what was happening in front of me. I was stunned, saddened, and furious. I begged her from across the room to look at my phone and see that I'd never done any of that. Her and my mother were both weeping, and I started to cry. My stepdad called me every word he could think of, and he escorted me out of the house while telling me that if he saw me on his property again, he would call the police. I spent the next several weeks trying to contact them to no avail. Calls, texts, voicemails, every messaging app out there, nothing. After those weeks, I got a call from my stepdad who told me to stop trying to contact her and that I was never welcome in his house or around his family again. I tried to call my mother over this time, to no avail as well. After about a month, all I got from anyone was a text from my mother saying how sad and disappointed she was. My mother didn't really have much family, so they always spent holidays with my stepdad's side. They all shunned me as well. I saw their Christmas pictures on Facebook with my ex-fiancé present and seemingly in good spirits, which crushed me. The only family I had that would talk to me at all was my dad's brother and his family. Despite that even, they all seemed wary of me too. The only one that I truly think believed me was my uncle. I don't think I'd have made it without him, honestly. He showed me what I'd been missing in fatherly love, and I've never been so grateful for anyone. About 6 months after it all, I moved away from the East Coast and I settled out in California, needing to get away from it all. A little less than a year after I moved, I got a call from an area code from back home, which I rarely got anymore. I picked up and it was my stepbrother, whom I promptly hung up on. He called me back and I ignored it, but it stuck with me all day. I decided that if he called back again, I'd pick up. Which he did later that night. It was awkward at best. He told me that my fiancée was really torn up for a long time. It took her nearly a year for him to even start looking again for a significant other. I hadn't at all since it ended. A few months into her doing so, my stepdad encouraged him to ask her on a date, which he did. Things went okay for the first couple outings, but they never really clicked apparently. He told my stepdad about that, and the idiot told him, "I didn't get rid of OP for nothing. She's a great girl. You need to figure it out with her." I almost collapsed, and it was quickly replaced with anger. Apparently, he had gotten a girl, I still don't know who, to pose as someone that I had an affair with, and forged some message screenshots to have her send to my fiancé. He told me that he'd said it to him about a month ago, and he didn't know what to do. Apparently it bothered him enough that he couldn't just sit on the information anymore, so he told me and said he was going to tell my mum and fiancé the next day. He called me first as a courtesy, so he knew what to say to them regarding me. I told him where I was and that I'd appreciate it if they didn't immediately contact me, so I had some time to digest it all. That was last Tuesday. I just texted him and told him that I was ready to talk to them if they wanted to, and that they could call me tomorrow. I really don't know what I'm going to say, or them for that matter. I expect some tears and a good number of apologies among other things. I don't really know if I'm ready to give forgiveness or anything like that. The only person I've told so far is my uncle, who I've asked to keep it to himself. Sorry again for how long this was. My therapist picked a crap week to go on vacation, and I needed to vent. Update. We'll post a longer update tonight, I think. No phone calls from anyone else yet, but a good call from my stepbrother that felt nice. I appreciate the support from everyone. I'll try to get to all the comments as well when I get a chance. In the comments, "Your stepfather is a truly awful, insecure, small-minded man. Just my 2 cents, but you should always stay in no contact with him. He will never be on your side. You might be able to understand why ex-fiancée believed what she did, and even forgive her, but that does not mean that you should re-establish any type of relationship. That boat sailed when she didn't believe you or give you a chance to prove your innocence. There are plenty of other women out there for you to meet who aren't easily manipulated or dragging the baggage of faithlessness with them. I am so sorry for all of the pain this has caused, but as long as your stepfather is in the picture, your own life will be much happier without any of them in it. I hope OP doesn't accept what they've done, but keeps moving on where they are with their life. I don't think there's anyone in that family to reconsider taking back. The apology is going to be a hollow one, the ex-fiancé will be the most devastated as well, but even then, there was no trust to believe OP at all, and then she rubbed it in by staying all of those years with the creepy stepfather. The mother is a real gem herself too. Honestly, the only one that could be seen as decent is the stepbrother who took a while to even reach out to OP. I'm sorry to hear this. The whole situation is awful. Your stepfather is a crap human. Your mum, no matter if you did cheat, sorry to say, was weak. As a mum myself, I know my child might mess up and make mistakes, and cheating on your partner is terrible, but doesn't necessitate going no contact to her only child. You and your fiancé were betrayed by a gross-ass man who had zero business doing what he did. He's frickin' juvenile, and I sincerely hope karma bites him in the ass by having his whole family turn their backs on him. I'm curious why your stepdad did this, if there was some jealousy from his end to you or some other insecurity. In the meantime, you don't have to give forgiveness to anyone at any time if you don't want to. Focus on your own needs and working through your feelings. Please keep us posted how your conversations go and how you are doing. Based off their history, my guess would be that stepdad thought OP wasn't man enough to be with his fiancée or something and decided to set his own son up as the person that he felt actually deserved to be with her. And now for the update. Alright, sorry for the delay. Busy day at work and obviously a lot of other stuff on my mind. My stepbrother called me this morning and told me exactly what happened this past week. So apparently, what my stepfather said wasn't exactly what he told me. He elaborated more and said he was very careful with his words so as not to incriminate himself. Per him, heavily and very clearly implying what he did without directly saying what he did. The thing about my stepbrother is, he is much smarter than me. Instead of just walking to my mother and fiancé with that and getting into a shouting match with his dad, he took a different course that I wouldn't have thought of. He got a hold of my ex's phone and he found the girl. He said that it took him forever to backtrack it. He gave her a call and got her to meet him out in public. That's where it all came to a head. She was a Tinder match with my stepfather, which I think pretty clearly indicates that he had been sleeping around on my mum. That irritated me even more for obvious reasons. The girl alleges they did not sleep together. However, whether that is the truth did not matter to me. What does is my stepbrother talked to her and pulled on her heartstrings with the story and all that had happened. For the record, she clearly knew what she was doing. Maybe the time and hearing what had happened to me really shook her up, but again, it doesn't matter to me. She told him what happened. $1,000 for a phone call. That was the deal. He told her what to say and supplied the pictures of evidence. She made the call and that was that. My stepbrother then asked her if she could tell my mother and ex, and even offered to pay her again for the record. She agreed for free, and that happened on yesterday. My stepfather is on a business trip until Wednesday, so it was just the four of them there. She came in and spilled it all to my mother and ex. Stepbro said the tears started almost immediately from all three of them. After everything, he told them that I was in California and that he would tell them when I wanted to be contacted. Was before I texted him. A little backstory for you guys to try to understand some stuff about my mother and ex-fiancé, and this is in no way defending their actions, just to help some folks understand. My mother and I were inseparable after my dad passed. We were each other's rocks. When I turned 16, I began to drink to kinda dull it all a bit. I told my mum that we'd spend New Year's together the year that I was 16, and I ended up out with my friends, drunk as all hell. I got a text from my mum, who spent the night alone at home, and that was where we were never quite the same. She sent me a text about how sad she was all alone, and I felt like complete crap over it. I stopped drinking that day until after everything went to hell. She is the type of person to always need someone. She can't handle being alone. I think when her and my dad's love began to fade, I filled that void, and when I was growing and ended up leaving home, my stepfather filled that void. And then my ex, as I said earlier, she doesn't have a family really. She had some real trust issues due to this, along with some really nasty past relationships. Despite this, she never would talk badly about past boyfriends, which I really admired. One was physically abusive, and I consider that an obvious exception. I, despite being debilitatingly shy, have often been told that I'm cute, especially by younger girls, meaning younger than me, not children. I never really liked that title, as it's not very masculine, but I got over it and learned to appreciate my boyish face and how often I would blush. My fiancé is just shy of 3 years older than me, and I've always preferred older girls and never given much time or thought to girls who seemingly liked me because they were 18 to 20. This didn't stop attention, which upset my fiancé. She'd often ask why I wasn't interested in these girls, and why didn't I leave her for someone younger and prettier, etc. I always found her extremely attractive, significantly more attractive than me, honestly, and would always reiterate that to her, and that I never cared about any other girl. Okay, sorry to get off track. That, again, I hope brings a little insight to why I think they did what they did and believed what they believed. Again, this is not an excuse for them, nor am I really all that understanding personally. At the end of the call with my brother, he said they both wanted to call today, and I told him that'd be fine. So I sat and waited. By about 3 p.m., I was a little confused. I started to wonder if he'd made it all up to mess with me. It really worried me, honestly. I got a text from him asking if I was all good. I said yeah, and asked if they were actually planning on calling today. He said they'd been trying for the last few hours. I'd blocked them both when I moved out west and had just forgotten. Why I didn't block him, I don't know. I'm thankful that I didn't though. I unblocked them both and got a call from my mum about 10 minutes later. First thing she said was that I sounded different. I almost hung up right then. It took all I had just to say, yeah. She broke down immediately after that. I really thought that I'd feel more. I'd be lying if I said I felt nothing, but the pain of it all just took hold of me more than her words. She asked if I'd gotten her texts. I said no. I guess she'd been trying to text me over the last year, but I had her number blocked. If she really wanted to reach me, she could have. Maybe that's a little crappy, but I know it's true. I pretty much told her that I'd be willing to build some semblance of a relationship back with time, and she was happy with that. She also told me that she was getting all her necessities out of the house before my stepfather got home, and she would be filing for divorce immediately. I believe her too. She may be a poor excuse for a mother in my eyes, but she's never been someone to take half measures. I really wish I could be there to see that prick's face when he comes back to an empty home. My ex got the phone next and did the same tearful apologies my mum did. I felt a little more with her. I actually tried to get her to think and remember how many times I told her that I'd never do that to her and how much I loved her. She was beside herself, and to be honest, I'm glad. We talked for about half an hour, and I really thought that it was pleasant. Even though I told myself for over a year now that it would never happen again, thought there could still be something for us. She told me she still had the ring, and it made me upset. I told her to give it to my mum because it didn't belong to either of us anymore. I could tell that really crushed her, and selfishly, I wanted it to. She asked if she could call and text me. I told her it was fine, but to not expect a prompt response either way, which she understood. I pretty much gave her the same ultimatum as my mum, though I said any chances of us having a future relationship were very slim. She said she understood that too. I talked to my brother last and thanked him for everything he had done. He was helping my mum get her stuff out of his father's house. He apologized for all that had happened and told me he was going to tell the rest of the family everything as well. Them I have no connection to and won't say a word to, I don't imagine. Except my stepfather's mother, oldest person in any of the families, and she wished me a happy birthday and Merry Christmas over the last year. Maybe she was old enough that she doesn't care. Maybe she felt bad, but I will talk to her, odd as it is. Sorry for all the rambling. I fly home for my uncle's 60th birthday the first week of March. It'll be my first time home since I moved out here. I'll definitely plan on seeing my brother as well. I'm not adverse to seeing my mum and ex, but I've made it clear to them that I've got a lot of healing to do, and so do they. If anything further happens, I will update again, maybe after that trip home, but that looks like it for the time being. Also, this is kind of the last social media I have. I haven't been on here super often in the last year for the reasons I'm sure you could guess. I truly haven't seen any similar stories to mine that have been referenced in the comments, though I'd like to if you can find them. I'm more than happy to answer any questions anyone would have regarding this whole thing to the best of my knowledge. Thank you, everyone. Brief update. I got a call from a number back home. I deleted most of my numbers a while ago from anyone that I wasn't talking with. I picked up and it was my stepfather. He said hello and I hung up and blocked the number. I immediately called my mum, fiance and brother. They are all safe, not around him. Mum's in a hotel that he doesn't know about, fiance and brother are at their residences, and both say they feel adequately protected. He is not by any indication a violent man, but better safe than sorry. My brother said that he got a call from him this morning when he got home after my mum wasn't there and wouldn't answer. Brother told him what happened and not to contact any of them. Not sure how long he sat there, but he called me around 3 p.m. Pacific. About an hour ago, I got a message from a different number saying, "We need to talk." I assume that's him. I haven't responded, and that's the latest. Brief update 2, Stepdad's mother called me. I had her number saved because of what I previously stated. I was a bit worried it may have been him trying to gather some info or something, but it wasn't. She's a very sweet lady who did not have to be nice to me in any way, but has shown me compassion. She was very nice and wished me well, while also apologizing on behalf of the family. I thanked her and wished her the best too. Shocking that he came from that woman. In the comments, "Wow, man, this sure is a lot for you to process. I'm glad everyone found out the truth now, and you have every right to take your time to rebuild the relationships that were destroyed, if that's what you want to do. I highly suggest you start therapy too, and we would love to hear from you again." OP says, "Started therapy after moving last year, and most definitely have benefited from it. Don't meet him or talk. Cut him off and move on. He's only going to try and regain control of the narrative. Nobody needs to hear him out. The problem is OP's mum and ex might give in, especially since they feel very alone right now. They are very vulnerable, and Stepdad probably knows that this is his best window to regain control. Honestly, it might be an idea to get them out to meet in person far away from Stepdad, although personally, I wouldn't be too big on it. But if it got them away from someone like that, I might consider it. Might. Honestly, the worst in my opinion is your mum. At 16, she distanced herself from you because of a stupid teen behavior from someone who lost his dad. Instead of being an adult and understanding that she can't rely on you like you were an adult and actually go to therapy, she just blamed you and resented you, guilted you. And when all of this happened, she chose your fiancé over you. That is unforgivable in my book. You are her child. My mother would still stand by any of my siblings if we were crazy murderers, would not approve, but would still love us. Yours chose to abandon you, plain and simple. That is not unconditional love. I wouldn't have any kind of relationship with any of them without them going to therapy." And OP says, "Yeah, I would definitely agree. She needs to see someone about her attachment issues. I don't think she resented me for that stuff. I think it was just that she realized I wasn't a long-term solution for her, and it inadvertently drove her into the arms of a crappy guy. I still have love for her, but she's got to do some work for it to become a relationship again." The stepdad sounds like he deserves to be forever alone. I hope everyone shuns him. This sort of scumbag always finds a new victim until they are old and bitter and either change or die. He's already on dating apps. I bet he moved straight on to the next one. Especially since he seems to think that people are interchangeable. Like, even if ex-fiancé is a great girl, why would she be a good match for stepbro, who is nothing like OP? The logic of it all doesn't even make sense. She's a person, not a possession like a car or a house. His whole plan hinged on being able to just swap out OP for his bio son, which is just a stupid plan for so many reasons. And yet, bio son is the MVP in this story. I kinda love him because he chose integrity and new family over his own father. Not everyone will do that, particularly if raised by a shitheel like Dad. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys today. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.